I want to protect your guys' time. I know we might have a few more people that signed up that could jump in at different points. Just by signing up, you're going to get from us this week as well a link to this video on replay too, so you can watch it back in case there's anything in the notes, stuff that you're wanting to dive a little bit deeper into, as well as feel free to reach out with any questions that you have or anything like that. Um, Let me go ahead and get into, you guys can see my screen, I'm assuming, with what might be a map pin, might be a balloon that's lifting a church up in the air. Great. Okay, so this is the first webinar that we're doing at Grace-Led Communications. Grace-Led is we serve nonprofit ministries and churches. And our main goal, we think of ourselves more as partners in ministry than as a marketing agency. Our primary goal is to help churches and ministries connect with more people in their communities and to use digital tools to do so. I went to a little bit of information about me. I went to seminary at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. I've been a pastor in New Orleans. I started a church in New York City. And things like website design, or what we're going to talk about today with managing a Google business profile, social media ads. I spent ads on our church whenever I spent money on ads on our church plant whenever we started. And yet I did not see any kind of return from those. I didn't know how to set an audience. I didn't know what needed to be in an ad. I just knew that, hey, I see ads, so let's put ads out there and see what happens. I'll boost a post, and I could see that, 1,000 people looked at it, but our church wasn't seeing any new guests. Uh, I got connected with another church planner that had started a digital marketing company back when I was serving in New York City. And it was through him that I started kind of diving more into how to connect digital tools to ministry, really to not just expand ministry opportunities, but also to connect with new people. I mean, most of, especially in the United States, most of our country is online. The statistics, 80% of people are at a minimum are going to visit you online before they ever visit you in person at your church. And that means that there's both an opportunity and a challenge here, right? Because I am 34 years old. I'm a millennial. Well, technically, internet wasn't a super big thing whenever I was born. I mean, by the time I'm coming of age, internet, smartphones, all those things are there. And so we can take that for granted, right? And you visit Nike.com or Amazon's app or any of the things that Apple puts out, and you see a certain kind of product, and you come to expect a certain kind of experience, not just on desktop, but increasingly your mobile device, right? And so then whenever you want to go to a restaurant, you're checking out all the information you can about a restaurant beforehand. I don't know if you're like me. I want to look at a food menu. I look at Yelp to see what the reviews are. When I was in New York, I could see their health score, and then going into a restaurant that's rated a C, it's like kind of eat at your own risk. And so, I would look at all those things before I would ever try a place out. And then it comes to church, and all those things are secondary for a church, right? Our website's a tool. Our social media is a tool. They're a means to an end. They're not the point. And yet, a lot of times, just like any of the other things Paul talks about in First Corinthians can become a barrier to the gospel, so can our digital presence. And we want to remove as many of those things as possible so we could see them as actually channels to connect with more people rather than seeing them as barriers for making connections with people. And so this is my information. My email address is there, my cell phone number, in case you need anything, because I get to really serve in this role in two different capacities. From both the business standpoint and wanting to work with churches, but also from a ministry standpoint. And as somebody that I've planted my life here in Louisiana, and we're serving with a local church, even thinking about future church ministry, like this is just kind of the dream job for me, that I get to be able to serve other churches as well, and partner with you guys in the work that you're doing. So over the course of the next several minutes, and what we're hoping to cover here is really a few different things. I think the title of our webinar was talking about the Google Business Profile. If you don't know what that is, we'll talk about it in a second. It says business in it, but really it's something that could be a tool to serve churches. And we're going to talk about why your church needs that. And really, it's very easy to set up. But not just that, but when you think of Google search as a whole, And maybe you grew up in the days of, Ask Jeeves and Bing and plenty of other options too, but the majority of the searching world is on Google. And when you search church near me or church in Gonzales, Louisiana, church in Covington, Louisiana, Protestant church, Baptist church, interdenominational name. Google is running an algorithm. Their bots are crawling your website. There's certain things that determine how visible your church is whenever someone is searching for Christian community or things related to faith in your area. And so we're going to look at some of the categories of what those search results are, and then we're going to hone in on two in particular. The third thing here, we're going to talk about an opportunity that Google has provided for all nonprofits, and it includes churches, the Google for Nonprofits grant. There's a lot of free things that come with that, but one of them can really help elevate you in search standings, and that's $10,000 a month in credit towards Google Ads. We'll talk about how to apply for that and really what to do once you have it to actually steward it well. And then finally, the Google business profile, when people search for you in a map, how to actually optimize that so you can connect with people and not just, I have it, so I have it, and I hope that it helps. But really, it might actually, if it's not set up properly, could be hurting you more than helping you. We're going to cover grounds on several different things over the next several minutes. And so if you have questions, this is meant to also, this can be an informal conversation. There's the little react button on the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. You can hit raise hand. And I definitely will see that because I'm looking at all of you guys right now. If you could also just comment in the chat with a question. And if I don't see the comment in the chat or I'm not able to get to it while we're talking, we're going to have time at the very end where we can just kind of a free for all. And I'm happy to stay on a few extra minutes if you have questions about Google Business Profile or really anything else related to digital communications, because we're wanting to do these kind of webinars once a month. And there's a lot of different grounds that we can cover. We're launching a podcast. We have a blog. There's a lot of different ways that we want to be able to resource pastors and church leaders as you're looking to do ministry in your context. So clear? Good to go? Let's do it. First, does Google Maps matter? Why does it matter for your churches? Has anybody seen this kind of little map here before with these little circles on it? Great. So this is one church, and it's in my local context. And the two pictures are based off of two specific keywords or search results, terms that I used in Google. The one that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is when I search for that church near me. What you can see with the numbers is when you are directly where that pin is, right in the middle of the map, they're the #1 church, which makes sense. Like if I was to search Grace-Led Communications and I'm inside the office of Grace-Led Communications, I got a pretty decent chance of being the top result. Because Google will ask you whenever you search, hey, are you okay with us looking at your location or using your location? You say yes. Oh, you're in Grace-Led Locations. This is definitely the option for you. Same thing with churches, right? But most of us, we're looking to reach people that are more than just within 10 to 15 feet of where we're standing. And so what this map does, this is a 10-mile radius around this church building, around their physical address. And as you get further out, you can see how high up they show in Google search results for the term church near me. This can show you a few different things. One, it might show you where you're drawing and connecting with some people. It might also be because there's similar churches in other areas. Or it might be because you have something in your Google Maps settings that's off. And we'll get into that in a little bit because this is actually something I adjusted for this church because everything in the top right corner, as at the start of this week, was not in their service area. And we don't think of that as a church, right? We don't think like, we're not a plumbing company that thinks, hey, we serve this city, and this city. But really, there's certain zip codes that we're trying to engage with the gospel. And Google wants to know that because they want to deliver relevant results to the people that are in those places. On the right-hand side, and I know just talking to at least two of you, that both of you are from Louisiana, we live north of Lake Pontchartrain. Lake Pontchartrain is the big lake that is right on top of New Orleans. And on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans is a few different cities, but collectively they're known as the North Shore. Okay, so I grew up on the North Shore in New Orleans, went to college in New Orleans, but now I'm back on the North Shore. And when I search North Shore Church, or church on the North Shore actually was the search results for here. You see how a church that was number one in the listings, when somebody, let's say, moves from New Orleans to the North Shore, and which is very common as people have kids and want to start families, and so they move out of the city. You know, we're kind of like, this is the suburbs here, and they are looking for, hey, I want to find a church on the North Shore. And this church that is the number one church in certain pockets of the North Shore, whenever you just search church, when somebody's looking for a North Shore church, they fall off the map. They're not even on the second page of Google. And this is all because of the way someone's Google business profile is set up. So these things matter, not just for really for who you get an opportunity to connect with, right? So here's an example directly from my context again, because location services help. You know, I just simply searched for the town that I live in right now called Covington, and Covington churches. Now I might have an excellent website. I might have a brand new website. Website design and development is one of the things that we do at GraceLed, and you could have a website that's optimized for what's called search engine optimization, SEO, if that's something that you've heard of. And still, if your Google Maps listing is off, you might not appear in the top of search. And there's a host of reasons for that. We'll get over into that more here in just a second. But as you can see, if you just look at the three churches that are listed here at the top, before you get to any actual website addresses underneath it, Google delivers local results first, right? And so you see those three churches: Lakeshore Church, First Baptist Church, Covington, Community Church, Covington Campus. Now, the crazy part of just looking at those three locations is that one of those churches, actually two of those churches, are under 300 people. You know, they're a small to mid-sized church. One of those churches is 3,000 people, and they're not number one in the search results. And as I got to dive into those, and actually our business, we get to manage two of these churches in their online presence. As we've started doing SEO work, we've seen that not all the settings were optimized properly. And so now it takes a little bit of time for Google to crawl the website again once you change those settings, but you're going to start to see these results change in the coming days within the next week. And so the size of your church, the amount of people visiting your website, how great of a website you have, even if you're a small church, you can become more visible online by simply having things put in the right place and set up the right way. Those three search results that you saw on the last screen, that's what we call the map pack. And, you know, we live in the South. So if I search for churches, there's more than three churches on the North Shore. There's plenty of churches in Southeast Louisiana. And yet what Google's going to show you at first is just three results. Now think if you're a new person that's just moved into the state, maybe you moved here for work, or you're moving from New Orleans in our context to the North Shore, looking to start your family and kind of grow and get a little bit more space and a little bit more cost effective. And you're looking to plug in with a new church in the place where you've moved. And you simply search for a church near me or church in and insert the name of your city. Now you might go to the fourth, fifth, sixth search result, but I know where you're going to go first. You're going to check out the ones that are first delivered to you, right? Just like when I search Mexican restaurant, there might be 10 of them and 9 of them might be terrible, but I'm going to start with the first ones that I see listed on Google and kind of work my way down. And so fitting into that map pack and those first three results that show up whenever someone searches for a church or Christian community, or insert faith keyword in your context, that becomes a big deal with actually getting an opportunity to connect with new people and then invite them into the life of your church. Any questions so far? Any thoughts on any of that before we dive into a little bit more of the search results and then how we can set that up to better perform online and be more visible as a church? Cool. If you have questions, like I said, you can raise your hand. You can put something in the chat. I do see, I think, something in the chat, if I can get there. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, let's continue on then with types of results. When you search in Google, there's several different kinds of results that can happen. So again, you're looking at, actually, give me 1 second to back out of this so I can close this chat window and see. You guys still see my screen? Great. Whenever someone searches for, again, for a church or for a business, what I've put here is actually just for something because there was no sponsored posts in my area. So I just searched for a plumber in another place. So that way I could find some sponsored posts to give you an example here. But when somebody searches for something on Google, there's 4 different kinds of results that they might show. The top, what you see at the top of your screen, is called a local service ad. Those don't apply to churches. That's like exactly what I'm talking about, a plumber or an air conditioner repairman, that they have something to offer for you to buy and for them to come do for you. And you can place ads on Google specifically for that kind of business. So again, that's not really applicable to a church. Those kind of results aren't going to show up whenever somebody searches for your church. However, the next 3 do. First, you have Google AdWords. The $10,000 in ad credits that's available to churches through the Google for Nonprofit grant. This is where your results would show up above the map pack, the first thing that people see whenever they search for a church. We'll talk more about those here in a minute. But then after that is the Google Business Profile, the map pack, the 3 search results, and then you can hit more places, view everything else on a map. And then finally, what you actually were looking for, your organic search results, like actual church websites and linking to things based off of your Google search. And so those 3 categories, the bottom 3, Google AdWords, Google Business Profile, organic search results, those are the 3 that if you have a strategy towards wanting to be more visible for people in your community online, those are the 3 areas where a church is going to want to focus. Let's talk first about the top. I know we're going to spend most of our time on the Google Business Profile, but I really do want to hit this because this is kind of money that's just on the table to serve churches and ministries like yours. Now, this URL here is just /nonprofits. You see at the top of your screen. You could visit it right now if you want to, just to see what I'm talking about whenever we get there. But there's 3 things that are offered for the Google for Nonprofit grant. You got an email from me before this webinar, right? And it was from rob@graceled.org. I showed my email at the start of our slides. You might have at firstbaptistchurch.org. At insert church name, those branded emails that you have, and a lot of times they're through something like Google Suite. Those are free for recipients of the Google for Nonprofits grant. I think they can be, last time I looked, they were like maybe $14 a month or something just to buy G Suite for your organization. But those are free for as many as you want. If you are enrolled in their program. Not only do you get the free emails, you get up to 100 terabytes of storage with Google Drive, depending on how many users you have within your G Suite account. Now, you might not know the difference between a terabyte and a gigabyte and a megabyte, but a terabyte is a lot of storage. You don't need very many terabytes for most of what a church is doing to be able to just be good. You don't need to pay for a Dropbox subscription. You don't need to pay separately for a Google Drive subscription to house all of your electronic documents, images, videos, all of those things you can do for free through this program with Google Drive. And then finally, like I said, and there's, see, we're missing a 0 there, but $10,000 a month in credits for Google text ads. And you can do that over as many campaigns as you want. Let's talk about that piece. How do you actually apply for the grant? What happens whenever you get access to the grant? So like I said, it's just /nonprofits. And then you need 3 pieces of information initially. Your employee identification number, that would be on any of your tax forms, right? Whenever you registered as a nonprofit, that number, whenever you start the application process, it should pull up your church's name. And then you should just be able to click it. If it's in their database, which I don't know how often that updates for Google, they use like a third party for that. But if you put in your EIN and it pulls up your church, like great, it kind of automates a lot of the process. If it doesn't, then you might need your nonprofit certification, like your paperwork that you got from the State Department or however your state does that. And just simply to like take a picture of it and add it as an attachment at some point. But more than likely, your church will pop up whenever you give them your employee identification number. You'll have to provide a physical address. It's okay if your church doesn't own a building. but you do need a physical address. So whenever you incorporate it as a church, you maybe if you're a church planner, maybe you used your apartment or your house, wherever you get mail as a church. If that's a physical address, you can use that. This is different from the address you're going to use for your Google business profile, because that can be wherever you meet. But you just need a physical address, and you need contact information. Who's the admin? Name, email address, whoever it is that you want to be able to manage the account. With those things, it takes anywhere from like 2 days to up to a couple of weeks for them to verify all the information. They might send you a follow-up email and ask you to check something just to make sure that the contact info is correct. But with that in place, you'll get an email saying that you've been approved into the Google for Nonprofits program. Then next time you visit that /nonprofits page, you'll have an option to activate your products. And you can activate. Yeah, Andrew, what's up?
So I was telling a friend of mine today, who's a pastor in Mississippi, about how I was going to be on this webinar and such. Let me lower my hand. And he made the comment that when his church registered as a nonprofit on Google, they had them send them a picture of the church building.
Sure.
Do they do that still sometimes when you put in the address or anything like that?
Yeah, it is subjective. Usually not for the Google for Nonprofits program. Now, where that might come into play is that just like some people get audited for their taxes, Google every so often will ping a Google business profile, which we'll talk about next, and ask for video verification. And that will include some like photos of the building you say that you're in. And there's easy ways around video verification, but it's like a video where in your case, you're wearing your collar, or maybe you have like a baptism shirt on if you're not a pastor that wears a collar. You're outside your building, you say, this is where we conduct our business. You walk inside, you walk to the office if there's an office. This is a space that's just private to our staff. And that's the video, and you send the video in. So they sometimes ask for more of that and verifying your listing, but more often than not just through going through the Google for Nonprofit program. Now, they are going to ask you a question when you register about whether your business discriminates in hiring practices. Now, that is something that you have to process through personally yourself. The way that that's worded and what is put on churches according to federal law is that it's not discriminatory practices to be able to operate within your bylaws as a church. And so, again, you have to do what your conscience allows as well, but legally you are not in violation of that at all. Depending on how you hired, the fact that you want staff that's only Christians and professing faith in Jesus or whatever other reason, if it's in accordance with your bylaws, you can check that off whenever you sign up. Once you sign up, the last thing, you can activate your emails, and then it has a step-by-step process for that. You can activate your Google Drive storage. And then finally, there's the $10,000 in credits. Just because you have that doesn't mean you're going to spend that. Chances are you're probably not going to spend $10,000 a month in ads as a church. That's a lot of money. But what helps with that is you will not spend $10,000 if you simply set up a campaign that says you want to put sponsored posts whenever someone says church near me and send people to your homepage. That campaign might cost you $20. So you see, like all of a sudden there becomes a lot of opportunities. If your church has various healing ministries, things for people that have been through divorce, or someone has is going through various stages of grief, maybe lost a loved one, and you have like ministries and classes for that kind of thing. You can set up sponsored posts and campaigns that point to landing pages on your website for any variety of search terms that's within your industry. And so you can have multiple campaigns running that are all delivering sponsored posts for things other than just people saying, I want to find a church, pointing to your church. Now that helps when you have specific landing pages that are serving the people that are Googling for those kind of things, and you're not just sending them to your homepage, because chances are they'll see it, be like, oh, it's just a church. They see information that's relevant to exactly what they're looking for. That's going to help. But a great tip for using these ads is anyone that comes and visits your church's website through one of these Google ads, you have that information of who visited your website. And you can use that audience pulling from your Google Analytics and send it to Meta, Facebook and Instagram, and use that as an audience for something called retargeting ads. And so imagine that somebody is new to your city and they're searching for, they're looking for a new church. They're looking for a church to visit. They see your sponsored post at the top. That's a landing page that's focused on people that are new to your city. And like, hey, we're a welcoming church. We have this wonderful kids ministry. This is how long our services are. Here's this FAQ, a video from the pastor. People visit that page. And then the next time they get on their social media, they see an ad from the exact same church with a video from the pastor inviting them to that church. And so you can start to build kind of a multifaceted strategy here for just having multiple touch points with people that you might not have even met personally yet. Now, this is something that you can do simply by going through these steps. If you feel like you need help with any of these things, we also offer this service of running ads from Google through Meta, helping people plan a visit to your church. Any questions about the Google AdWords before we jump into Google Business Profile? All right, cool. Let's keep moving. Google Business Profile, formerly called Google My Business. This link, for whatever reason, Google gave us a longer URL that you have to enter to go to Google Business Profile. You could also just search Google Business Profile. It'll be the first thing. You can click that. You do not need a Gmail email address to have a Google Business Profile. If you're using Outlook for some reason, you can keep using Outlook. You do need a Google account though, and you can register that with any email address. So once you have a Google account, you're logged into your Google account, you visit this page for creating a business profile. It's going to ask you for several pieces of information: the name of your church. And when I say I have several qualifiers here, if you look at the bottom for details needed to create a profile, because when it asks for your church name, put your full church name. Put your church name the way it's going to be displayed on other places. If your Facebook page is First Baptist Church Topeka, your Google business profile should not be FBC Topeka. Include the full name. Secondly, primary category. Now, there's a unique opportunity here potentially, but more often than not, your category should just be church. We saw one church start to climb in their Google business profile rankings simply because their primary category when they set it up was Baptist church. And they're like, hey, we're a Baptist church. It makes sense that that's offered as a category, so we'll select Baptist church. The problem was people weren't often searching in their town, Baptist church near me. They were just searching for a church, right? People weren't necessarily thinking that way. And so even though they might be doing a lot of other things right, they were getting moved further down the results because church was just a secondary category for them. They did great when somebody searched Baptist church, but people were far and far away searching just for simply church near me, church in my town, those kind of things. And so they didn't show as high in the results. Now, where this might be different, if you are serving and leading within a much smaller denomination, a great example of that would be like an Anglican church. And you are serving in an Anglican church. There's not other Anglican churches in the area. There might be every third church is a non-denominational church around us here. There's a lot of Baptist churches. There's some Presbyterian churches, but not a lot of Anglican churches. Often, people that have been to more of a high church experience with an Anglican church, or they move to a new place or they're familiar with that, they might be looking specifically for an Anglican church because it's a very different church experience than going to a Southern Baptist church or a non-denominational church or something like that. And so maybe you actually capitalize on that by making your primary category Anglican church and your secondary category church. But by and large, for most people, I would say church should be your primary category. You do need a physical address that you're going to have to provide. Doesn't matter if you own it. You meet in a shared space, put it. You can search for and Google and Apple both has become much more sophisticated when you search for an address that they'll give you businesses meeting at this address, and it might give you multiple options. The church that I planted in New York City, we first started off in a conference room of a co-working building called WeWork. And so there was 100+ offices, that met there. We rented a small office and we used their conference rooms, and they had a little small like auditorium room that we would use. And still, when you search for our church name, a pin popped up on WeWork. It just needs to be a physical address wherever it is you meet, because people are going to search your church name and then hit directions. And the last thing you want is them going to your house, because that's the address you put in on a Sunday morning. So wherever it is you worship, and then finally your contact email, your contact phone number, which your contact is necessarily going to be displayed, but it is going to be the person that's allowed as an admin to be able to update the profile in the future. Couple of tips. First off, you're wondering, how does my church get on Google Maps when somebody just opens Maps on their phone and searches for a listing? It's by having a Google Business Profile. So if you're wondering, how do I get my church there? Create a Google Business Profile. You'll show up in Google Maps. Secondly, Apple. Apple's process is very simple, but it is separate from Google. And I gave you guys the link there at the bottom of the page, businessconnect.apple.com. You go through similar steps with them to get your listing verified in Apple Maps when somebody searches for your church there. All right. So when you have a completed Google Business Profile, you put in just some of the basic information, it pops up. You'll see on the screen on the right-hand side, you've seen this when you search for a restaurant or you search for any kind of business, that this little like toolbar on the right-hand side is giving you your Google Business Profile. It's matched it based off of what you searched for, and there's a lot of information available there, right? You can go to your website, you can get directions to the place, you can save it to your places with your Google account. Excuse me, it has office hours, it has reviews, it might have photos, a lot of different things there, right? But your whole profile gets displayed in their search results whenever someone searches for your church. But simply setting it up isn't enough. I told you guys, of the 3 churches that were in that map pack originally, one of those churches have 3,000 people in them on a weekend service, and they weren't first in their search results. You have to optimize your Google Business Profile. And there's a way that you can do that specific to churches. So once you have a Google Business Profile and you are logged into your account, and you can see my little face in black and white in the top right corner of that screenshot, I'm logged into my account that's an admin. You can add as many admins to a Google Business Profile as you want, but whenever you search for your church afterwards, you'll get a little screen like this with your business on Google and some options to update. And you can just do that right within your search results. It's going to give you some like little featured calls to action at the bottom, but all of your little tools that you might use to update and add things to your profile are all going to be right there. Now, why would you want to add more things to your Google Business Profile? Like really name, address, phone number, website. You would think that that's enough. A lot of it comes down to really how just Google wants its software to work. I'm an Apple guy. Like, I am recording this in a Zoom call on a MacBook, while I get a text notification from my wife on my Apple Watch, and then recording a separate feed of the same thing on my iPhone. Like, if they make it and it's by Apple and I have a choice between that and something else, I get Apple. And why is that? Because Apple products work better the more of them you have. Like they sync well together. They work well together. Google is the same way. Amazon's the same way. They want you to use more of their stuff. And so this is why the big difference, you might not have the budget to do a new website yet. And so your website's old. You don't know how to create a great website. We'd love to help you with that as well. But maybe website's not something that's on the table for you this year. And so right now you're just looking, hey, what can we do? A Google Business Profile is free. And Google sees that and thinks, oh, you're using our stuff. The more you use it, the more features you check off, the more updates you put on the Google Business Profile, the higher they rank your trustworthiness, the higher they rank you in search. And so before having to spend any money on any other number of things, you can simply just use the tools that Google offers for your church, and you'll find that you'll start to increase in search results, specifically in that map pack. So 2 ways to optimize your profile. The first several things here are just things that you can do as soon as you create it. You could do them today. They're quick, they're easy. And then there's a couple of things that if you took one day out of your month for about 15 minutes, you could do a couple of other things and just set a monthly reminder for you, and you're going to continue to see your performance for your Google Business Profile increase. All right, so one-time things, small additions you can start making today. I mean, a lot of these things you could probably do just as you're setting up your profile. But if you need a checklist for here's what needs to be on your profile as a church, here's some of those things. First, church logo as your profile photo. It shows up too small and people don't care to, in that profile photo, to see like a graphic for your next sermon series or a picture of your church at a barbecue. Just put your logo there. That's that brand. It's called a brand for a reason. It gives you recognition and identity when people see it. And that's what you want affiliated as they see you on social media, as they see you on YouTube or your website or anywhere else. So just add your logo as the profile photo. Where you can get a little more bit creative is with the cover photo. There's an option to add a cover photo. I mean, all these businesses do the same thing, just like Facebook with their cover photo and their profile photo. Honestly, if you have my recommendation for your cover photo would be a photo of like what church life looks like. And for a lot of people, the thing that shows a lot of what people are thinking of when they're thinking of visiting a church is your worship service. And so maybe a high quality photo of your worship gathering that has people in it that are engaged in worship or the hearing of the word or taking sacraments or whatever that might be specific to your church. If you got access to somebody that has a drone and can take a nice aerial shot of your church building, I think that's a great option for a cover photo. Mainly because it provides recognition. If you have a building that people drive by, putting that building in the picture when people visit your profile immediately helps connect the dots that, oh, I know that church, right? And so if that's not a photo that you can take right now, you feel like I can take a picture of our church, but that might scare people more than invite people. Stick with the cover photo of just your worship gathering. Secondly, like I said before, double check those primary and secondary categories. You can add as many secondary categories as you want. Now, those should be related. Like, again, don't put plumber for your category. You want those related to what you actually do as a church, but Protestant church or Catholic church or those other keywords you might add, Baptist church, specific denominations, like all those things you can add as secondary categories. Next, your hours. Now, this is going to be different depending on your church because a lot of you are working out of established churches, right? And so you might have office hours. You might be Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's when people can come visit the church. Then you have worship service always at the same time and in the same place every week. And so that's something that you could set as your hours. For church planners, your hours might change from week to week. Where you're available might change from week to week. So the option that you're looking for is open without set hours. That's also going to be a benefit to anybody that picks that choice. Because when you're open without set hours, you don't have to communicate your closed hours. Because what Google might ding you for is when you don't add that your office is closed on Christmas, when your office is closed on Thanksgiving. And so this fast forwards a little bit to like the recurring things that you want to do with maintenance for your profile. Whenever you have holidays or your office hours or your worship service stuff changes, you want to make sure to update that with Google and with anywhere that you're listed, like your Facebook page. Next, description of your church. You're probably going to be tempted to go to the About page or the I'm New page of your website, pull the first paragraph and just copy and paste it right here in your Google Business Profile. But you're missing an opportunity if you do that. Yes, you want to communicate vision, the vision of your church. You want to communicate that you have a welcoming tone, that you're inviting people to be a part of your church family. But your description is your main place where you can add keywords that Google is going to pick up on to show you in search results. So I tried to do this with a church in our area this week, where the church that went from Baptist church as their main category to just church and their subcategory being Baptist church. I wanted to add another subcategory, North Shore Church. And I couldn't do that because what's a North Shore church? That's not a thing. That's just like that's specific to where I live, right? And so instead, I updated the description of the church to talk about how they are a church on the North Shore for those that are looking to gather for worship or experience community and life-changing relationships on the North Shore. And so those kind of keywords that you think, and you know your context, you know your people, what are people searching for? What's local and specific to you? Work in those terms into the description of your church on your Google Business Profile. Next, whatever zip codes your church reaches, if you were to put a 20, 25 mile, and if you're in an urban area, it might be much smaller. But whatever you'd say is, hey, if we are going to reach our community for Christ, this is the geographic area in which we're trying to live, serve, and minister. That can be as many zip codes as you want. But add each of those just by zip code. Don't search by the city because the city might have multiple zip codes in it. Instead, just add your zip codes one after another. There's no limit to how many of those that you can add. Put all your social media links on there. And then finally, and this is one that I don't know that people think about necessarily as much, add an FAQ. Now, the frequently asked questions section, or the questions and answer section is what Google calls it. It's primarily it's meant for people to ask questions to the business and the business to reply with an answer. But you, as the business, can ask yourself a question. And so let's say you have an I'm new page on your website that has an FAQ about how long the service is. Do we have to dress a certain way? Is there something for my kids? How early do we need to arrive? And you have all those different kind of things. You can add them as questions on your Google Business Profile and then go right underneath them and answer them. If you have at least 10 FAQs on your Google Business Profile, Google is going to support you for that. It is going to help you with your Google search rankings because you're making use of another feature. Okay, so as we kind of pivot and kind of round off towards the end here, let's talk about ongoing updates for your Google Business Profile. You might add some photos whenever you start and whenever you create the profile, but keep adding them. Right? Like your social media account that you have, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be, a church that looks like they haven't, posted anything in 4 months, you think, oh, the church died, or there was some kind of conflict, like something's wrong here. And so whether it's adding photos, and really it can just be a couple of photos each month, and only once a month, or it's Google Business Posts. And I'll be honest, why do you need to have posts on Google? Like, we have enough posts on Facebook and Instagram and X and YouTube and Snapchat and all these other places. Google has its own thing too. And even though you might not get any engagement on a Google business post, I guarantee you Google's bots see when you post to Google, even if it's just once a month. Take one of your social media posts that you were already putting on Facebook and cross-post it to Google. It could just be, an invitation post if you do a post that's previewing your Sunday school or your small group curriculum or an event, anything like that. Just also share it to Google as a post once a month, and that'll continue to help. Now, we're going to have a whole page on this next, but because this is a weird issue for churches, and that's reviews. Google Business Profile wasn't made for churches, but churches do have to use it and can benefit from it. But when you go to a restaurant, I like to read reviews. When I go to a business or some kind of like entertainment venue with my kid, like I'm going to read reviews and see what that's like. I'm going to see, what the staff is like, what the experience is like, how the food tastes. And so not only do you want your church account to get more reviews, which is weird, we're going to talk about it, but you also want to respond to all reviews you get. It could be a simple thanks for a positive review. It's addressing especially anything that's negative reviews. They're all from 1 to 5 stars, but you want to see more reviews on your account. It shows that you're more trustworthy to Google and shows that you're active when you respond to the reviews that you get. And then the final thing on there, and we'll say more about this in a second, don't just answer the questions that get posted. We talked about that, but also add more listings. Your Google Business Profile is an online listing. That's a directory of businesses. Facebook pages, that's a directory of businesses and services. Yelp, similar thing. Bing actually still exists, similar thing. Yellowpages.com, similar thing. We'll talk about more of those in a second, but it's a way that you can also grow your presence on Google. Any questions? Otherwise, we're going to kind of round the corner here and head towards the end and then have some time for Q&A. It's a little harder for me to get to the chat right now. So if you have a question, let's use the hand raise emoji. And then once I stop sharing my screen at the end, I'll hit any questions that might be in the chat. All right. So reviews for church. I got to put in a little bit of scripture in this, and it might be a little bit less expository than I would like normally in a sermon, because the Bible doesn't have anything to say about Google Business Reviews. But if this is an area, you might be thinking, like, how do I even go about getting reviews for my church? Like, we're not a business. I don't want to be salesy. Consumerism has already kind of infected a lot of church culture. And so what does this actually look like? Is this something that's okay for us to even be thinking about? Well, whether it's Paul in Romans 13 or 1 Timothy 5, the idea of paying honor to who honor is owed is certainly present within Scripture. And there are people in your congregation that are thankful to be a part of your church family. And reviews give them an opportunity to basically say, hey, I'm thankful for this. I think that you would appreciate being a part of this church as well. But really where I want to land is Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5:16 at the bottom of the screen says, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. You know, Romans 10 comes to mind too. How can they see your good works unless like you're actually near them to see it? And how can you be near them to see it unless you meet them where they are? And in 2024, that's online. And so we want to be ministers out in our community, in our neighborhoods, with our neighbors, with our coworkers, with our friends. And we also want to meet people online. And one of the ways that we can allow people in our church to be able to share what God is doing in our church is through things like reviews. Now, how do you do that? And the blue text there is important without being weird. There's probably a lot of different ways that we can do this. If you have ideas, share them in the chat so that way we have them as well. We're probably going to do a blog post just about this in the future because one idea that I have though for getting more reviews is to make it a small part of your membership meeting or your congregational meeting. If you do membership or if you have business meetings or whatever that's like, the people that come to that meeting are invested more in your church. You know, I don't expect any church, and I wouldn't at my church want to have like little placards as people walk in the door, you know, like scan this QR code and give us a review. Like again, you know, that's not, we're not a restaurant. And yet there are people that have bought into the vision and mission of the church and believe that God has called them to be a part of the work that your church family is doing in your community. And that's essentially what church membership is, however your church may do that. And so when you're in a member meeting, and this doesn't necessarily have to be any member meeting, you could explain similarly to what I just did on the previous slide about how things like Google Business Reviews is something that is an opportunity, not a request or a requirement. This is a way that we can be missional and actually be put in front of more people by playing the way that Google has set up their software, rather than trying to be consumeristic or make it sound like ours is the best church in town, but simply just asking people if they could share about their experience with church. And this is with insiders that are closer in your church family, sharing the why. You know, not just if you just ask somebody, hey, can you write a review for your church? That's going to come off a certain way. But when you share the why and meeting people where they're at, and this actually helps us be more visible online, then you have a new opportunity here. And secondly, make it easy for them. You know, if you hand out notes at a membership meeting, include a QR code on that with a direct link to be able to send a review. And then share the information, share the why, and make the request, not to your church broadly, but to those that are invested and key leaders that are trying to advance the mission for the kingdom within your church family. And then finally with that, respond to every review. I said it before, I'm gonna say it again, like respond to every review. If you get a negative review, don't immediately just go to figure out how you can get it removed from Google. Just respond. And then maybe see if you can get it removed from Google. But like respond to every review. There's people on the other side of those lines. And so every time somebody leaves a review for your church, that is a missional opportunity to be able to connect with that person. Whether it's positive or negative, man, we can pastor in those moments. All right. Closing out, grow your church's online listings. What does that mean? Uh, Google Places is right in the middle of the screen. And yet, uh, there are all kinds of things all over the internet that lists businesses, ministries, churches. Um, Now, chances are you see some at the top, like Facebook, and see this is a little bit of a data graphic. It has Twitter over there. But then there's other directories on here that I would assume you haven't heard of. What is Kudzu or Dexnose or Yellowbot? It doesn't matter if you know what that is. It doesn't matter if anyone else uses that to find a church. It matters to Google because when Google sees that your church is listed in multiple places, it thinks, oh, like people are interested in them. They're kind of a big deal. And again, you could be a church with a small number of people, but a large number of listings, and you'll find yourself more visible in the map pack whenever people search for Christian community in your area. And so how do you do that? Well, first, get your Google business profile claimed, get yourself listed. You need to do that manually. That one carries the most weight. But then make sure every detail where those listings are the same. You can do this right now. If you have a Facebook page for your church and you have a Google business profile, again, difference between First Baptist Church and FBC. The difference in your address between street abbreviated with a period or without a period, street spelled out, street all caps, street no cap. Like all of those matter. And if you have a bunch of listings, but you have the word highway spelled out completely on some of them, and you have HWY for your address on others of them, Google will actually penalize you with that because it spots the inconsistency. Having your phone number formatted the same on all these. So how do you do that? If you want to be listed in 30 different places, and you know people are just going to check Facebook and Google, but it helps with your Google search rankings, there are tools online, and I provided one here called yext.com. That simply by using that tool, you can synchronize all of those listings. So when you make an update to one place like Google Business Profile, it updates everywhere. Now, I'm going to come back to Yext here in like 2 more slides because when you use their service by themselves, it can be a little bit pricey. But we have an opportunity that's coming up through something that we're building that is going to use and it actually includes Yext in it and is a much cheaper price because we're working together with them as an agency. So there are tools to be able to manage all these listings together. Now, if you're curious, how's my church doing right now? Like how visible are we? What is that little search grid for church near me? What does that look like for our church right now? Do I have multiple listings? Because you don't have to create a listing for actually it to be automatically created for you. And when you go on Google, you might find that you're claiming a listing that Google automatically made. And so all those kind of things, the speed of your website, what keywords are helpful. We have a little program. You can go on our website with simply graceled.org/check. You put in, I think, your name, your email, and then it searches through map listings for your church name. If you find it there, you can click it and it'll run a report that you can have right there immediately. That'll give you some of that information just to see where you are. Now, you see that information, maybe it's helpful to you. Maybe you want some more help talking through that, interpreting some of that data, creating a plan for like a program. How can we actually take a missional approach to digital communications and not just have a website because we feel like we need to have a website? How can we use our social media to do ministry and not just promote ministry? Then something I want to put in front of you guys is booking a strategy session with us. I handle our strategy sessions and jumping on calls to be able to talk with churches through where they're at, where there might be opportunities and challenges, and then creating a custom program to be able to meet your needs, whether that's with new website design, social media help, working with ads on Google and Meta, video work, any of the number of things that we can help you guys with as a church. If we can serve, we want to. And so graceled.org/schedule. And there's just a form, just like when you signed up for the webinar, we can provide some of the information about your church. So that way I can do my due diligence and kind of look into all of the things, your current online presence, and then I'll come prepared to discuss what's already there whenever you book a call through our calendar. Final slide, final thing. I mentioned it before whenever I was talking about Yext. We're currently working on something that is going to do all of these different things for us. Because it's great to work through a lot of manual tools. But my guess is if you've been serving in a church for any amount of time, chances are you are working with a lot of different programs. Now, you might have like some kind of church people management program like CCB or church teams or planning center, Breeze, Nucleus. There's a bunch of those out there, right? For form management and your people database. You have something else that maybe it's the same service, but you're paying an add-on fee for registrations for your events, for sending out email messages or text messages, or you want to put some kind of like some kind of chat widget on your website so people can respond, like connect with people directly when they visit your website, or your online giving, which, increasingly every church is trying to have some form of online giving to make that more accessible. And yet giving fees or being charged based off of the number of people that you have giving in your church. And then it's like this hike that continues to get more and more expensive as a subscription. That Yext service, that their full premium service is $999 a year. If you buy it online yourself, it is $30 a month as an add-on within this platform that we're building. Social media, whether you use Buffer or Loomly, or you're just going into the business manager on Facebook that's as clunky as it is and trying to schedule posts or getting all those things out. If you've ever seen something on Facebook or Instagram where they say, hey, we have this great tool, or here's the sermon clip. If you want the full sermon, comment the word sermon below and we'll send you the clip. That automation that just automatically sends a DM with a link whenever somebody comments a certain keyword. Sending out workflow emails to first-time guests. They get a series of emails. What you got from us? When you registered, if you registered, more than 2 days ago, then chances are you got an email. You got a voicemail that was pre-recorded for me. Sorry if you answered and you tried to speak and I didn't speak back. You got a text message 15 minutes before this kicked off. All of those things we're building into one single platform that we can provide to for churches. If that's something that you'd like more information about as we get ready to launch it here in the coming weeks, you can simply text the word platform, which again is part of that part of that software, to the number that's in blue on the screen, 844-407-5289. I also get any text messages from that. Feel free to reach out with any questions or anything you have. I see we've gone a couple minutes over time here, but I do want to open it up for any questions. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this webinar. When you do something like this, it's just like preaching your first sermon. You never know. I'm either going to go for an hour or I'm going to go for 10 minutes. I think I went really short on my first sermon, by the way. But yeah, let me stop sharing my screen here, bring up you guys. And yeah, any questions, any thoughts, any other topics that you'd like to hear discussed? I have a few more minutes here. I'm happy to talk through anything about Google Business Profiles, Google Search, or any other topics that you guys would like have questions about for digital communications.
Hey Rob, it's Kendall. I don't have any questions. I was going to go ahead and jump off, but I just wanted to say thank you for, even holding this webinar, and I'll most likely be doing a lot of the tips and reviews that you gave, and I'll be in touch with you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Kendall. I appreciate it. I'm
Thank
going to send an
you. Y'all
email
have a
out
great
with
day,
the
everyone.
video with notes. So thanks
Okay.
again. Thanks
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions? Let me get a sip of water.
This kind of goes hand in hand. It's not really on the digital side, but just off the top of your head, just thinking about this in terms of like how Google calls itself like the Google nonprofit grant, stuff like that. For church plants, do you know off the top of your head any grants that like new church plants can apply for? Just stuff like that for funds for church plants. Topic, but
Specific to church plants, might depend on denominational affiliation. Now, newchurches.com has a lot of free resources, some master classes on being a church plant or being a sending church. And they used to have like a toolkit of all different kinds of things that they made available to church planters. And so that's newchurches.com. Another tip for any pastor that I know this isn't going to help you plant your church, but it might help you survive your church plant is pastorstays.com. Stays like a vacation, because that's what it is. If you are an ordained minister, I don't even think you actually have to be serving an active church. You just have to be able to present your ordination paperwork within any denomination. It's essentially Expedia for pastors, where you can book vacation homes and the only thing you pay is a cleaning fee. And so that's anywhere from like $60 to $150 to stay at these like wonderful lake houses or mountain homes. A lot of them are right now in the mountain in like the Pacific Northwest. But they got a map of all those different homes. Now, because they're vacation homes for other people that have donated them for that purpose, finding availability might be a challenge. But if you're planning a sabbatical for next year, or just simply looking to take a vacation on a budget, I think that that's a great resource for pastors. All right. Well, thank you guys again for jumping on the call. We will have this up this week as a replay, and you'll get an email with a link to this, some of the notes and the links that are pertinent to the nonprofits, the grant, the business profile, registry, and I'll put pastor stays on there as well too. Also, one other thing, Andrew, with your question, TechSoup is not church specific, but like Google for nonprofits is one grant resource. Once you have your 501c3 or your umbrella, or from whatever your registration number from whatever umbrella 501c3 you're underneath, you can use that to sign up for something called TechSoup, TECH. And TechSoup has discounts to nonprofits. It's like a buffet of all different kinds of things. And so you can get the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite with Illustrator and Photoshop and all those things for like pennies on the dollar. You can get discounts to, I think, like other hotel discounts and other things like that, car rentals. A lot of different things are listed, and I think growing all the time on TechSoup. They take like a small, like $4 to $6 admin fee, and then they're providing the discount on top of that. But that's I think definitely worth registering for.
TechSoup or suit?
Soup, like a bowl of soup.
Yeah, S-U-P.
Yep.
TechSoup.com.
I believe it's .com. It's either .com or .org. TechSoup.org makes sense. They're serving .orgs. But yeah, TechSoup.org. QuickBooks is actually the header whenever you first visit. You can get QuickBooks for a discount for your church taxes. So yeah. I gave you guys my email, rob@graceled.org. Cell phone number is also on there as well too. You'll get all that stuff. I'll send some follow-up information. But thanks again for being on the call, and we look forward to doing more of these next month. All right, bye guys.